Welcome back to the Paul's Podcast, and we're happy you're back with us today on this wonderful Monday morning or whenever it is. But, man, we're even more happy. We have a special guest with us. We got the Reverend Missionary Evangelist, Mr. Todd Mckeehan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Doing great. That's good. That's good. He's been preaching a missions conference at our church, and so we figured we'd take advantage of the opportunity and have him on the podcast and question his beliefs on why he believes what he believes. And but just sit around with him and do a little interview. And I personally have never got to hear your testimony, so
Okay.
I'm kind of curious about that. I believe I've heard Trent's. Is that your brother's name? Yeah. Trent. Yeah, Trent. I believe I've heard his testimony. Which you both kind of look alike a little bit.
Oh, my.
I didn't know you had a brother.
I do.
You got a big family or just?
No, just me and him. Yeah. We're 11 months apart.
Wow.
So, yeah, we do look a lot. Of course, I'm better looking. Of course.
That's what I tell Jeremiah. No, but yeah. So what's your testimony?
Okay. You want me to start from the beginning?
Yeah.
So we wasn't brought up in church. We wasn't raised in church, raised around the things of God. So, I probably could count on one hand how many times I went to church up in, I don't know, probably my early 20s. Mm-hmm. And lived a rough life, sin, and a lot of things I don't want to get into. But when I was 20 years old, I started a job, and the first day on the job, a man gave me a gospel tract. And I started witnessing to me. And he done that for several months, and God just, and I didn't know anything, and God got to working in my heart. God was dealing with my heart, and I didn't even realize what he was doing. He was drawing me unto himself, and I remember going to the motel. We worked construction, traveled all over the Southeast, and I remember going to motel rooms, whatever town we were in, and finding a Bible in the nightstand of a motel room, and reading the Bible, just trying to find God. That went on for a long time. And finally I think it was in December, him and some men that I worked with got together and bought me a Bible and gave it to me. And started going to church some, and then finally in May of 99, I realized I was a sinner, and I cried out to the Lord, and he saved me, changed my life, awesome. And made a difference in me. So,
awesome.
Wow.
And got in church, started going to church, and getting involved in church. And the Lord started giving me positions. I've taught Sunday school and different things. And I had a pastor that really took me under his wing and I didn't know anything about doctrines or, anything. I remember, he would take me, and we'd go on visitation, and the whole time he would just be teaching me different doctrines and things of that nature. And so the Lord really grew me during that time, and then the Lord began to deal with my heart about preaching. And, of course, God has always had to be very patient with me because I'm not, it's not that I'm just difficult to vote with, I guess. But the Lord was dealing with my heart about preaching, and I really didn't understand what he was even doing. I was just happy to be saved. Mm-hmm. And through a series of events, God started opening doors, and I started preaching, but I never did announce my call to preach.
Yeah.
And I'd go to the nursing home, the jails, and I was preaching and different places. And finally, one Monday, God really just kind of backed me in a corner and said, you need to quit trying to play. Get serious.
Right.
And my wife, she had 5 miscarriages before we ever had our first child. Right. And she was pregnant with my oldest girl, Abby. And started having some trouble, started having some issues, and I took her to the hospital. And on the way to the hospital, God said, "Son, you got to preach." Mm-hmm. And we went to the hospital, and she checked in, and I went to the restroom. And I said, Lord, I got on my face on the restroom floor, and I said, Lord, if you want me to preach, let this baby be okay. Mm-hmm. And God spoke to my heart, and he said, that's not surrender.
Right.
He said, you ought to be willing to do what I want you to do regardless of what the outcome is.
Right.
And so I just waved the white flag there in the hospital and went out. They ran some tests. She was fine. They sent us home. I was on a Monday. Wednesday night, I announced my call to preach, and my pastor, matter of fact, I came to him. I got off work that day. I went to his job, and I said, I believe God's called me to preach. He said, well, that's good. And he's turned around and walked off. And I thought, man. So I went home and got ready to go to church, and got to church. I got there a little early and waited on the front steps for my pastor to show up. He showed up 2 minutes before service and walks up to me and just, how are you tonight? Walks in. I said, man. So I walk in, sit down beside of him. Service gets started. He looks at me. He said, are you serious? I said, yes, sir. He said, this thing's for life. I said, I know. He said, well, you can just preach tonight. And I said, all right. So I announced the call to preached that night. And, that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah.
Wow. Never mind, preacher. I think I recall my call. Wow. Was it a good service?
Yeah, it was a great service. I never will forget when he said that. Of course, I was like, I had a thought on my heart I've been working on. I started looking through my Bible, and I remember a couple men in the church started looking at me like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, no, they know. And so the choir sung, and my pastor got up, and he said, Todd's got something he needs to say tonight. And I got up and announced my call to preach, and I said, I'm going to have to preach tonight. Looks like. So anyway, I preached, and then Lord moved. Several people came to the altar and just kind of confirmed it in my heart,
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, who's your pastor at that time? Who was you?
My brother Jimmy Millsaps.
Jimmy Millsaps. I remember
He's been my pastor for a long time.
So you were raised in?
Yeah, I was born in East Tennessee.
Was you?
And when I was probably about 4 or 5, my parents moved to North Carolina, and I grew up there ever since in Robbinsville. So.
Robbinsville. We've been there many a times as missionaries.
Yeah, you have.
I remember.
I remember when you was a little boy.
Yeah, I remember it. We used to stay in a log cabin out there, a 2-story log cabin. I don't know where. It was in Robbinsville somewhere when Dad would go first see Jimmy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. As far as like when you knew the Lord wanted you to preach, so that first night, was that the first time you ever preached? Obviously, without notes, like.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because I got saved at a church. The pastor that I got saved under was out from under Brother Jimmy.
Yeah.
And then so he was the pastor, kind of took me under his wing. Some things happened. He left the church, and church. Some things happened in the church, and I went to Grace Tabernacle, got under Brother Jimmy. And so, really, Brother Jimmy, his philosophy has always been you study, and you preach out of the overflow. Mm-hmm. And I pick at him a lot. He'll come in Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and he'll sit down on the front row and jot down 3 points and get up and preach like a wild man.
Wow.
And throw meat on the table.
Yeah.
Right.
So he had put that in me.
Yeah.
And so I was ready. I mean, I wasn't ready, but I was ready. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so I just jotted a couple things down and got up that night and preached.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Are you doing that tonight?
Probably so.
So for me, I'm a preacher. I know CJ's a preacher. Justice he's a singer. He really is. He
We're
can sing
praying
really.
for Justice.
He is.
That's something I haven't been able to do.
I don't know if the Lord will ever call him to preach. If he does, that's awesome. But that's if
I
the
hope
Lord wants
not.
it. Yeah.
I'm joking. I don't like men that can sing and preach. I'm playing.
He can sing. But so for me, it's always been when I get up to preach, I think it's been like I got to have almost what I'm going to say. Not really what I'm going to say, but a runoff, like to keep me on track because I have ADD real bad.
Yeah.
So you know that. I mean, we was talking the other night, and I introduced myself to somebody. And he said, or no, I asked that guy's name, a fella's name. Todd looked at me and said, "You going to tell him your name?" I was like, man, I completely forgot about that. But so what's your, I've got to hear you preach quite a bit, and I've noticed you're very expository, which I like that type of preaching.
Right.
So to young people, young preachers out there, what's your way of studying?
Just like that. The outline is usually the last thing I get.
Right.
I study a text. And in my, of course, I have evolved through the years. In my early days was probably a lot of topical, but again, I was young. I was really young in the Lord. But as I started studying the Word of God and getting around preaching, I started to become more expositional. But just I'll study a text, and again, what I'll do is I gather all the information I can. I get every commentary I have down and I'll read everything everybody says about that passage.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll usually come up with the outline.
Yeah.
The last thing is that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah. Well, last night what you preached about the fields being white, ready unto harvest, I've heard that preached. I don't know how many times.
And I've never seen that.
Seen how you took that application, but I see that now.
It's in the text.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess I picture it.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking of a field, but the way you drew that out, I was like, you can ask my wife. I went,
yeah.
I looked at her, I said, I have never, I've read it, I don't know how many times, but I've never thought about it like that.
I think sometimes we read the scripture based on things we've heard.
Yeah.
Right.
In other words, you've heard a passage preached on a lot. And so when you read that, you read a passage, you read it with what you've heard in mind instead of just looking at the text. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
And really, if you look at that text,
That's exactly what it was saying.
Exactly what it was saying, yeah.
Right.
That's crazy. Honestly, it was
great. It was. How long did you preach before you went in full-time evangelism?
Well, I pastored for a while. So I pastored, I took a church in 2003, and I pastored about 6 years. And you remember coming to the church when I pastored?
I barely remember what happened yesterday. I remember what you preached, but I can't take what happened yesterday.
So I pastored about 6 years, a couple different places. And when I left my church in 2000, latter part of 2008. And I think that's right on the dates. Anyway, the Lord began to deal with my heart about, I really thought the Lord would put me in another church. Mm-hmm. And God began to deal with my heart about going on the road and going into missions. And I prayed about it for probably about a year and a half. And I started on the road in 2010. And then I left my job and went full-time in 2011. So May of 2011, I believe. So I've been completely full-time since then.
This is going on 12 years or 11 years almost.
Something like that.
What year are we in?
It's whatever you say.
2023, ain't it?
Yeah, it is now.
It's getting crazy out here.
I know that's pretty scary, making that step into full-time evangelism. Was it as hard as you thought it would be, that transition?
It was the scariest thing I have ever done because I've had a public job, or at that time I had a public job ever since I was 16 years old, and had a family to support. We had a mortgage, we had a lot of things, and I knew God would take care of me. I believed that by faith, but at the same time I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never will forget, I walked off the job on Tuesday, and I was supposed to have a meeting on Wednesday. And some things happened. I drove for several hours, and the meeting got canceled. And so I drive home, spend the night. We had a lot of expenses, no meeting. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I've messed up. But the Lord I got a phone call the next day, and God it's just been amazing what the Lord has done.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like he, especially at first, he just confirmed it just every step of the way. And I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah, I bet so. I know that would be very scary. What'd you do?
I worked in a furniture factory. I was over the cabinet department.
Really?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I need some cabinets at my house. You think you can hook me up?
Yeah, I can hook you up. Lowe's somewhere around here.
They're too expensive. I need that friend discount. But so for those of you that don't know, I've actually got to talk to Todd quite a bit this week about some of his travels, and I do want to take a trip with him in December. I'm gonna pray about it, And so, Lord willing. But
That's a bad idea. Don't let them go with you.
yes, we would have fun. I promise you, I would be quiet the entire time.
No, he wouldn't.
I would up
I'd
until
probably put him beside me on a plane because I can't sleep on a plane.
That's your
He
man.
could entertain.
Yeah.
Well, I don't do. You don't want me with next to you on the plane. I got to be on the aisle seat, so that way if I need to go to the restroom, I can get to the restroom.
Yeah, okay.
But I had somewhere I was going with that. I lost I'm back now. Okay. Tell us a little bit about. So you obviously God's opened door after door for you, and I have noticed you've preached a lot around here.
I have, yeah.
And not too long ago, you was preaching for Brother Seth Syslov. Was it the Jubilee meeting or something down there?
He had a revival meeting. I preached revival for him.
Yeah. So, what would you say some of the coolest places you have been able to? Obviously, I imagine you can't really say nothing's been cool, but these are like highlights in the ministry.
Oh my! Well, again, the Lord has allowed me to go to a lot of places. Some cool. I mean, I got to go to Israel.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal.
I want to go there with him.
I want to go.
I've been to Scotland. That was England. Both of those were, amazing. I've been out west quite a bit. I've been Montana, Utah.
Do you hunt while you're out there?
No, I haven't got to yet. I want to.
See, what you do is next time you go out, you send them a list of your demands.
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm coming to preach for you.
They always tell me to come back out and go hunting, but I don't even have time around here to go.
Yeah.
I think I went one time last year.
Oh,
What's your least favorite state?
Least favorite stuff.
Is it South Carolina? I'm just wondering.
I don't know that I have one.
you can't say that, brother.
Yeah.
You can't say that.
I understand.
Probably be above the Mason-Dixon one.
The North. No, but that's awesome. I know we've asked several preachers that's been on the podcast. What are some of your, if you can say, but has there ever been anything that you have said that you're like, after saying it, you're like, oh no, while preaching?
That you can say on air?
That you,
I don't know. I wish you'd give me some time to think about it. I know there has been.
well, we'll circle back to it.
Especially
think about it.
Especially in the early days, there's a lot of things. You get in trouble repeating things you hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You better,
You can ask Dad about that. I've said, Lord help me, but I've said that ain't been several times. It's been at least one time I remember very specifically something I said.
I've said some dumb things. I'm thankful for my pastor. Even when I went out and pastored, my pastor was still my pastor.
Yeah.
And I pick at him all the time. If I say something dumb, he calls me. He'll say, think about what you just said. Is that really scriptural? And I'm like, come on, just give me a break.
It sound good.
It sounds good.
It was cool.
A lot of people amened it.
I don't know no better.
Yeah, it was
Good to
recently
be.
I made a statement, and it's a lot of people say it. It's just kind of I don't know. And I said something to him about it. We was just talking. I made that statement. And he said, stop and think about what you just said. I said, come on. You know what I mean. I said, yeah, but still, think about it. Is that scriptural?
One time I was preaching, and it's about in Timothy when he said, be thou an example of the believer. On through that scripture, he says hypocrisy. I said hypocrisy. And after it was all said and done, Dad came up to me and he said, what's hypocrisy mean? I was like, hypocrisy. He said, you said it tonight. I was like, I don't know. What does it mean? He said, I think you didn't read it right, son. He said, it's hypocrisy. I was like, I was homeschooled, Dad.
I know I've said some crazy things. I don't.
You'll have to ask Dad about my craziest thing. He'll tell you outside of church. But I remember I preached and I said what I said, and it wasn't unbiblical. I have a problem getting tongue twisted when I talk.
Well, if you preach, do public speaking, any at all, that's going to happen.
Yeah. I got tongue twisted on a certain word.
Yeah.
You have to ask Dad about it.
Yeah. I'll probably wait till after service.
Yeah. You need to preach tonight. Let God get what's on your heart off, and then you can get some entertainment after church. But now I know when I preach, I say this exact word, My wife is hooked on phonics. As I pick on her, I pronounce.
Your wife is hooked on phonics.
Well, yeah, ain't that the commercial? Like the phonics, like the how you say a word.
Like she's currently taking that.
Oh no!
Oh, okay.
She took it and she corrects me all the time. You know what it is? No.
I went to public school.
No, it's how you pronounce a word verbatim.
I know what you're talking about.
Syllables. Yeah, I don't know, but I say it syllable by syllable, and I make sure I say it right. He knows.
Do you have like one of the funniest moments that you can think of in ministry?
Oh, funniest moments. Oh, I've had some funny moments. Just things I've saw.
Either way.
I was at a meeting one night. I was at a meeting one night years ago, and this lady got up and she said she had a song on her heart. And I don't know if I should tell
always
this. Dangerous. Yeah. And she got up and she's talking about wanting everybody to pray for her. And she said the devil had really been fighting her. And she said she sung a song, and she said, now I'll have another song. And she said, you pray, the devil's really been fighting me. She said, I'll just tell you what with liquor. So he's been trying to get me to drink liquor all day. And said, I haven't. She said, I drank about that much beer. And I'm like, and I looked at the pastor, and I'm like, how you going to handle this? And he's looking there like, he's sick as a dog. And that's pretty funny. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Seen a man.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of funny things.
You said she sung "Simple Man."
No.
Oh, I thought you said she sung "Simple Man."
She actually sung a couple different songs, and she sung one that she wrote.
Oh, no.
It was very interesting. Very interesting.
You didn't like it?
Well, it was
like
it was very interesting.
Well,
I could tell she had drunk about that much beer.
She got a little tipsy.
She was feeling it.
She just walked in the service. I mean, just ain't nobody knew who she was.
this
really?
was a stranger?
Yes. She
wow.
just walked in, sit down, and the pastor got up and said, anybody got a song? And she said, I do.
Wow.
Man, never do that again.
Yeah. No, this was not like a church member. No.
Oh.
How do you handle that?
I don't know.
Go sit down.
Especially as a pastor.
That's what I'm saying. He just like I'm saying.
Like
No.
especially when it's a stranger and you ask that question and some stranger stands up and he's like, Lord, please.
We had a situation years ago. We had a revival at my home church. It went for several weeks, and a lady got up and sung. She sung a song, and it was just, it was bad, and it was and everybody's looking at my pastor like, she started dancing, and it was bad. So everybody's looking at my pastor like, how you gonna handle this? And he got up behind the pulpit, and he never addressed it. He never said anything to her, or even about the song. He just got another lady that always sings that has a touch of God on her. He said, come up here and sing that song about the blood. And he did, and she came up and sung, and it kind of rescued the service a little bit. Yeah.
Yes. We've had that. We have not had the singing happen. I get scared. My dad's a pastor. I get scared for him when certain things happen.
Yeah.
There was a family who's our church member now. I did not know them well at the time. And one Sunday they just stood up. I got something to say. And they'd been visiting a little bit. And I got a little scared. I was on the front row. I was like, oh, my goodness. And so I immediately, if you ever watch Dad, he'll do this. He'll put his head down because he don't know what's about to happen. I kind of do it too. I'm like, oh, Lord, please, God, we really need your help right now. And so he got up and he started talking, walked to the front. And like I said, I didn't know him at this time, this family. And he basically just poured his heart out about how God was just speaking to him. And I didn't know who they were, didn't know much about them, and I didn't know where it was going to go. And but he wound up saying, he said, God's confirmed this is where we want to join and be members of that. And they voted on him right then and there. And,
wow.
I think he knows
Now,
who he is.
Another funny story I'll tell you real quick. I was preaching at a church, and they had a kind of like a beam. From if you're standing in the pulpit, it would be to your left. And you could not see the door, the entrance door. And so it was kind of odd how the church was laid out. But anyway, so this man stood up, and when he stood up, he was screaming and yelling, and I'm preaching, and I think he's amen and whatever. Well, I didn't know it, but he's giving me down the road. He's letting me have it, but I don't know what he's saying. I just see him over there.
He's got the Holy Ghost on him.
The more he does that, the harder I put it. And so, well, there's a big old man that goes to that church. He was sitting on a pew, and he stood up and grabbed him and picked him up and carried him outside. I just kept preaching. After service, come to find out, the guy, he was mad at my preaching, and he was giving me down the road. And that guy picked him up, took him outside, and he said, I roughed him up in Jesus' name. Sent him on his way.
That'd be scary, man. I wouldn't know what to do.
I can't believe you stayed on topic. I mean, if I saw like a big fella come over and just grab a dude up and just start walking away,
Oh man, I'm used to preaching in prison. I've been, and I've been cussed at. It's preaching on the street. I've been cussed on.
What's it like in prison?
as a
prisoner
or
That's sad. I've never really spent much time. An adult prison is most of the time. They're glad you're there. Mm-hmm. They're receptive. They'll be respectful for the most part. I've had some I've had some different circumstances where it's not the case, but for the most part. Now, juvenile facility is a different story. They're most time when you go into a juvenile facility, they have no knowledge about the scripture whatsoever.
Right.
And they have no respect. It's just it's different. It's a hard. It's difficult.
Right.
And so there's all kinds of false doctrine. To deal with. It goes back to what we were talking about a moment ago. You just preach that Bible, let the Bible be the final authority.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what I tell them men. This is the final authority.
Right.
There's a lot of different. I've seen, there's witchcraft and pagan doctrine, Catholicism. There anything you can think of is in the prison system. It's almost like I've been to several different countries, and each country has different cultures. Mm-hmm. Prison system has its own culture. It's almost like a city within a city.
Wow.
It's just it's different.
Oh wow.
I bet it would be.
Well, we have another question that we've asked all the preachers that we've had on the podcast. What is something you don't say or at a funeral?
It's good to be here.
You've never done that, have you?
What's that?
You've never said that?
I've never said that. He asked me that the other day, and but I got to thinking about it this week. And it just kind of goes back to saying things that. So probably the first time I ever preached in prison, I was in South Carolina. I used to have a bad habit of saying, "I'll preach for a few moments and then we'll go home." Say that every time. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to preach for a little bit and we'll go home. And so I'm in this prison and I'm nervous. And I don't know, there's probably 120 inmates in there. And I said, open your Bible. And I'm going to, whatever passage. I said, I'm going to preach for a little while and we'll go home. And when I said that, I thought, well, that's dumb. These guys.
We're not going.
I said, at least I'll go home.
You said that?
They just all got
That's a target on your back. We're out of here.
It was funny to them. They laughed about it. We laughed about it. And,
Did you start sweating like, oh man?
But after that, I quit saying it.
At least I will.
That's wow.
I think you correct me if I'm wrong, but you are notorious for saying put that in your pipe and smoke it, ain't you?
I don't think I've ever said that. I might have said that a time or two, but no, that's not one of my.
I can't remember if it was him. It was somebody. It might not be you. I could have sworn it was you though. You get something kind of good, something real good, but put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah, no, it's not me.
It must be another preacher I'm talking about.
Yeah, you got me confused with somebody else.
He's like, I'm not affiliated with that.
We don't smoke nothing in this house.
Yeah. We don't.
I remember that story you told one time when you came to the church preach revival about you wrestling. Were you pretty good at wrestling? And did you college or anything like that, or just high school?
No, in high school, I was. I could have been a whole lot better. I couldn't keep my head on my shoulders.
I feel like you'd be a really good wrestler.
When I was 7, I've pretty much been on my own since I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last year of high school, I just was, I didn't take anything serious.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when I did take it serious, I was pretty good. Yeah, I was conference champ, won some tournaments, stuff like that.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that. You want to wrestle? Sure. I'm just kidding. Don't hurt me, man. I got something bad wrong with me. That's a Brandon Miller special right there. But, man, we thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Today. And be praying for you tonight as you preach. We got to head up and go do a bigger, interview somebody else. But I'm messing with you.
Oh, that was a bigger name, right?
No, I was going to say that, and I was like, well, that's mean. I ain't going to say that.
Well, you've already accused me of saying things that I don't say.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us how you really feel.
I'm almost positive he said that. If it wasn't you, it was somebody that preaches just
I know.
like you. Who is it?
I don't know, but it ain't him. But I've heard.
You've heard it.
I've heard it.
You've heard me preach quite a bit. You never heard me
I've
say
never
that.
heard you say that.
I'm going to ask Dad. He knows. Because he said it one time, and he
We'll
said,
have an
who?
altar call in a little while.
I need to.
See if you can
I pray
catch
for
up
I
on
come, but
that.
I need to pray again.
You got a famous quote or phrase you say all the time?
I'll preach for a few minutes, and we'll go home.
Yeah. I try to stop saying that. Yeah, I don't know. I try not to have any. I'm sure I do, but
I'm gonna listen tonight, real good.
well, that's
see what I
the
can
plan.
find.
You're not going to get anything out of. You're just going to listen for my.
What can I pick apart
What
in
can
Preacher
I-
McKeehan's message tonight?
McKeehan?
McKeehan?
Yeah,
You said McCann.
you said McCann.
Did I?
Yeah.
I say McCann?
Well, there's enough mix around here. It's easy to get confused.
I know we look alike.
Well, I put
starts
you in
with
good
an M.
company.
It starts with an M.
I put you in good company at least.
Yeah.
That is right.
So
That
probably
is
not.
right. Hey, Seth ain't here, man. Where was he at today?
I don't know. Have you heard from Seth Aldridge? You heard from any of them?
I have not.
We ain't either.
Man, I don't know where he went. I guess he's up there with Bigfoot or something.
One last question. I guess we'll let you go if we're not already distracted enough from preaching tonight. So you're a father. How many kids do you have?
Two
Two?
daughters.
2 daughters. Did you ever wish you had a boy?
Oh yeah, I'd love to have a boy. I love children. My wife and I just was able to have the 2 daughters that God gave us, and
Yes, sir.
yeah, I would have had,
I got a little brother you can have.
I'll take it. Yeah, but
Bring him back.
I love my girls. I love my daughters. I have no regrets. But yeah, I'd like to have a little boy.
Favorite memory with them?
Favorite memory? Oh my,
Or worst?
worst memory. I don't know. Them getting saved, that was a good memory.
Yes, sir.
Oh my, I don't know.
Which one would you say was the hardest to keep under control?
I really haven't had any trouble with my kids. The Lord has been good to me.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, other than just being kids, but
Yeah.
as far as being rebellious, or I've really not had any
No, yeah.
issues. I mean, they've been good up
Or
until this point.
I guess what I meant by that. Who would you say the most stubborn is?
That's an hard one. They both take after their mom, man.
Oh, goodness. Which one's your favorite?
Whichever one's buying my love.
Oh,
Hey,
goodness.
so you give one away last year to Brother Branch's son, Charlie,
it.
and you're about to give another one away.
This was going really good.
And now we're going downhill.
Downhill.
We better end it now.
End it now, boys. CJ, take us on home.
Well, it's been good to be here, and we thank you, Preacher, for coming on. Give us a
Absolutely.
few minutes of your time, and we've really enjoyed having you. And y'all leave us a comment below, let you know what you think. And
Be
how
kind.
much, be kind. How much you love Brother McKeehan. And we'll see you next week. Y'all have a good one. Stay out of trouble, and stay in prayer. We'll see you soon.